What's going on, guys? Do It with Dan back in the garage again, yet with the Harley build series. Last time we left off, we were watching Do It with Dan and the Deathly Wobbles. Harry Potter jokes. I love them. In this episode, we're going to be adjusting the chain, kind of tuning the carburetor a little bit, putting an exhaust on the bike, yes, because it needs a muffler, talking about the wobbles that I had last time, and flipping the suspension around. Also, I'm going to see how fast it'll go in my neighborhood. This is kind of a wrap-it-up episode. This is going to be the last episode I post of the Harley build series before Christmas. Now, I know a lot of you guys are probably going to be disappointed that you won't see anything about this until after Christmas. But I just want to say thank you guys so much for following it up until now. There's still a couple more episodes we got to do where we got to strip it back down, we got to paint it, we got to do the reveal, we got to put a new sprocket on, new tires, just little odds and ends, finish up the wiring, tune the carbs, and then it's good. That's it. But I also want to put out a very special shout out. I want to thank the people over at MOTO AMINO for helping and sponsoring this build. Not only do they make the really cool MOTO AMINO app, but they've sponsored this build a lot, and they've actually put a lot of help into this. So I just want to say thank you very much to MOTO AMINO for helping me get this bike to where it is right now as quickly as they have. Without their help, this bike would have taken a lot longer, and without the app itself, it would have taken even longer. Without their help, the bike would have taken much longer to get here, and I probably wouldn't have been able to find the help on what I've needed for parts and stuff like that for this bike. If you're unfamiliar with the MOTO AMINO app and you ride, I highly suggest you check it out. Not only because they help me, but because it helps a lot of other people too. Especially with builds and any questions that you have concerning about motorcycles. It's a lot like a forum for a vehicle where you can go and ask questions, but it's not specific to just the same brand. It's not just for Harleys or Kawasaki's or Hondas. You can ask whatever you want on there. There's a ton of things you can do. You can help find new riders in your area. What's the best type of tires? What's the best sizes to run? What's the best type of air filters, spark plugs, oil filters, any sort of maintenance questions, parts questions, replacement part questions. There's a lot of stuff on this bike that isn't OEM that I've had to kind of ask and get help from a lot of other people. And thankfully, there's tons of people out there who've been more than willing to help. So the app itself has endless possibilities. So that's also why I'm giving this long of a shout out, is because I really respect them over there and they've helped me out and they've really worked with me on this bike. So I have to say thank you very much, MOTO AMINO, for getting this bike where it is. And a lot of people have called this bike a piece of shit. And you're not wrong. But it's kind of a cool piece of shit, am I right? This is one of those things you should never copy me on. And I know, everyone keeps telling me to flip the piggybacks, it's gonna get flipped. Also, the new Star Wars kind of sucked. I'm just going to throw that out there. Also, I want to note that I did a lot of research, and from all the research that I was able to find, the direction of these do not matter in the slightest. But I'm changing it because I said I would. Direction, size, and orientation of these shocks do not matter. Alright, now that the wheel's adjusted, it's time to adjust the chain. Now there's a lot of ways you can do this. What I'm basically going to do is do it by hand. There's a lot of different ways to do this. The way I do it is not the right way, but this is how I've always done it. And now I just basically take a punch and knock out where the post is. Line it up where the hole is kinda, and then just give it like one little doop, doop, doop. There we go. Easy as 1, 2, 7. All right, let's see what we have here. We've got the chain on there nice and tight with very, like, you know, decent play. Not bad. Probably could be a little bit looser. I'm not gonna worry about it too much. Chain's gonna stretch anyway, but this is cool. Check this out. So this isn't the speedometer I'm probably gonna go with. This is just a GPS speedometer that I downloaded for my phone. Although it looks kind of classy and cool, but we'll worry about that later. It's just held on with zip ties. I just rode it around the neighborhood, and bottom to mid 4th gear, which is the lowest gear, it was doing about 35 miles an hour, and I still had a little bit more in 4th. So I'd say it probably goes 40 to 45 max speed right now. Now, obviously I'm not gonna run with this sprocket since how it's all fuckered. Like this sprocket's totally just old and chewed up. It needs a new sprocket. This is a 46 tooth or a 42 tooth. Either 42 or 46 tooth sprocket, I don't know. And then obviously if I went on the rear sprocket, which I think is like a 60 tooth, it's ridiculous. That's a lot of teeth for such a small motor. And don't worry, I have the cover for this. I'm gonna put it on. And just because I've been messing with the chain so much lately, I wanted to keep it off. I talked to this company called Sprocket Specialists that are gonna custom cut a smaller tooth sprocket for me so I get a little bit more top end power. I think I'm probably gonna go with something that's maybe like a 1-to-3 ratio with the front sprocket. I'm not sure. 14 tooth, I think this is a 14 tooth front. And maybe you guys can recommend teeth sizes. I would be happy with 50 to 55 miles an hour on this bike. Really anything faster than that kind of sketches me out on this thing. Although I did ride around my neighborhood with the carb being kind of goofy right now. The carb needs to be tuned. I still was able to get it up to 35 miles an hour and still had plenty of room in 4th gear. So I'm thinking if I decrease the sprocket in the rear a little bit, I don't think I'm gonna mess with the front sprocket. And then I tune the carb, then I should be, hopefully, be able to get it to 50, 55 miles an hour. And you guys can tell me whether or not you think that's a reasonable expectation. I would keep this bike certainly close to around 45 miles an hour and stay in the slow lane. That would be the general idea of this bike. Just a cruiser on Sunday, nothing crazy. Also, I cleaned up the wheel just a little bit to see what type of condition it's in. I mean, that's shiny. There's no rust. There's a little bit of pitting on it from like chunks of rock or something like that hitting it, but there's no rust on this wheel at all. And I'm in the front. It's virtually the same way. Along with look how clean the front forks got. With a polishing wheel, that'll look brand new. And I had a bar end mirror laying around, so I threw that on there. Kind of dope. The vibrations are now completely gone. It was the chain. It was the loose chain, and I know a lot of you guys were like, don't put an exhaust on it. That, first of all, that needed to happen. It's not a 2-stroke. Back pressure is definitely important though on a small bike like this. So that made a huge difference with the power and how the carburetor's running. It kicks over just about every time now without very little warm-up time, and it seems to run through the gears pretty decent. But yeah, the important thing is that those deathly wobbly vibrations that I was getting in the last video are gone. No more of those. I just rode around the neighborhood up to, like I said, 35 with 0 vibrations, which is great. And I flipped the shocks around, so, you know, whatever, get off my dick. Well, hello over here, ZX10E. God dang, you sexy, aren't you? Man, you almost look like you need to be dropped in the rear just a little bit. You got a tall ass.